Josh.
Okay, and we're done. And we're done.
Josh, Hendon and Said both talked about Brew McCoy and what they've seen out of him. Is he technically eligible to play yet? Is he cleared any NCAA stuff?
There's another hurdle that we still got to clear for him to be completely eligible. So our administration and department's working on that, and we'll find out when we find out.
He had some off-the-field issues, obviously, at USC that he was cleared up, I guess. How did you guys vet him when you were deciding to take him on?
Yeah, those things always go through our administration, our compliance department, all the entities on campus are part of that process, and feel really good about who he is and how he's approached, getting to Knoxville and becoming an integrated part of our football team and our campus life.
You mentioned playing with 69 players last year. How close to 85 will you be?
Don't have a number for you right now, but we're underneath that.
Josh, I know you guys still have that open investigation, so it's a little hard to kind of probably fully embrace like endorsing a collective or anybody like that. But you've seen Kirby come out and endorse his. You've seen Auburn's AD come out and tell fans to give to collectives and stuff. Do you think that's going to be more the norm as we go forward?
Yeah, for sure. I think the current landscape and legislation, which I and none of the coaches have control over, we're just operating in the space that we are. The collective piece of it is it's important, right? And I'm just talking about our current roster, right? Like the amount of opportunities, deals that our current roster have, it's a part of the landscape. And I think it's a positive one. It's one as a player I would have wanted to have an opportunity to take advantage of. It's awesome to see my kids, wearing a Cedric Tillman shirt around the house or a Hendon Hooker jersey. But I think it's changed the way that kids come into your program and how they approach things too. It's changed their decision-making process. But for sure, the landscape of the collectives is a big part of college football, and you've seen other people kind of endorse one entity.
Josh, do you have to be more transparent, even more transparent with your locker room because of this emergence?
I've always believed in being transparent. If you're not real, authentic, and true in every situation that you encounter, you're going to lose trust and credibility with your team. I think it's forced you to have different dialogues than you maybe currently or maybe had previously. As things come up, your players got to have a line of communication to be able to ask questions, raise concerns, and you as a leader and the staff that you have has to be able to answer those things transparently. And we try to have a great culture inside of our locker room. I think it's now more important than ever, just because of the landscape, NIL being a part of that. And then you got to be able to hit those things head on as you communicate with your players.
You had the Division I Council come out and at least say they're going to vote on potentially allowing this unlimited transfers and immediately eligible today. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, one positive is guys that have gotten stuck behind a great player have had an opportunity to go somewhere and play. At the end of the day, it's about developing people. I still believe that. It's true at the level that we're at in the SEC. It's true at NCAA Division III. I think you just got to be careful and make sure that kids are still working towards the most important part of their 4 or 5 year experience, which is getting a college degree and being ready for real life whenever that happens and learning life lessons along the way. So I just think, as we continue down this path in college football, we want to make sure that we don't lose the priorities.
Your team during the offseason, a lot of time with the strength coach and the strength staff. Coach Schmidt seems like a very behind-the-scenes guy. You brought him in from UCF or brought him with you. You've worked with him. What do you like about him and his style, and how much trust do you have in him with your football team?
Yeah, I think recruiting is a huge part of your roster, but it's only 50% of the story that's going to be told. The development of your roster is extremely important, and so that's true in what we do fundamentally with our players as football coaches, but it's also true of what Coach Schmidt and his staff do of developing the player: strength, size, speed, functional football movement, and he's been a huge part of our success. I think our players have had a great offseason with him. You've seen bodies change. The other side of that is just nutrition, and that's one of the things that our administration's done a great job. We've completely changed the way our players feed and fuel their bodies, and Ethan Bauer and his staff have done a great job.
Josh, we've heard some kind of tongue-in-cheek comments this week about work-life balance. Has that changed for you in the advent of NIL and transfer portal at all?
Yeah, I mean, the recruiting cycle has dramatically changed over the last 2 decades, and NIL and transfer portal, all of those things. We got to find a way to create a calendar that makes sense for college football as it is today. And the level that we're at is different than Division II or Division III potentially. And so finding a way to create a calendar that makes sense, that keeps the right people inside of the game. They're great developers of men and football players, I think is important. Not just work-life balance where you're able to go home and see your kids, but also be with the players that you need to be spending time with, which is your current roster, and developing them as people and players too. So we got to find a way to navigate that space a little bit better than we are right now.
Josh, is that realistic? I mean, with
it is.
Time period, early official visits, the window of the transfer portal in May, the window of the transfer portal in December. I mean, is the calendar even? Can you remotely get it back to some semblance of normalcy, I guess is what I'm asking?
Well, not if you potentially just want to go back to the calendar as everybody has known it, right? Like, I think you got to look, all these footings inside of college football are dramatically changing. Why not scratch the entire calendar and start with something that makes sense for how recruiting and college football is currently operating? And if you start from that frame of mind, then you can put best practices in place and create something that makes sense along all lines. You're talking about your current players, spending time with them, the season as it unfolds, recruiting that makes sense, and then transfer portal. You look at the NFL, they're not dealing with the draft and free agency all at the same time. There's a way to navigate those spaces.
Josh, they were talking about potentially changing the targeting rule in the second half, meaning if you get called for targeting in the second half, they can send that to Steve Shaw. He can review it, potentially overturn having to sit out first quarter next game, or first half, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that overall, the targeting rule and the penalty, and maybe changing that the way that they handle it?
Yeah, I do think what we're trying and what college football has tried to do with the targeting rule makes perfect sense. It's about player safety, and it's really not about the player that's getting hit. It's the hitter, and trying to keep them safe. The game is played differently now. At the end of the day, I think we want to put better parameters in that keep people on the field, and one-time exceptions to things that might have happened or things that aren't called correctly. Being able to correct those things in real time as much as possible, I think, is important.
Good question. Back up. Would that be something that you guys have to send to the Southeastern Conference or the NCAA to be reviewed if that happens?
I believe it's something. I believe it's something that we have to send in, on Sunday after the ball game.
Would you favor the SEC proposal that after an incomplete pass, the clock starts on the ready for play signal?
Repeat that one more time. I'm sorry.
Would you favor the SEC proposal that the clock would start after an incomplete pass on the ready for play signal?
I really don't have any strong feelings on that rule, and you guys might think that's crazy from somebody that's throwing the ball around, right? Like, they're looking for consistency of playing time just for TV purposes. I'd start with fake cramps and trying to rule that out of the game. But there's a lot of different options to create that.
And what are they?
What are they? Well, I mean, I think if you're injured during the course of a drive, player safety would say, man, we need to make sure that we take some time and truly evaluate this guy and probably keep him off the field for that drive.
If you could play commissioner for a day and pick Tennessee's
Boy, wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah.
and you went with the permanent 3 model, who would you want Tennessee to play as their permanent?
Yeah, I think your historical rivalries, right? From the moment I've gotten here, it's been Alabama, it's been Vandy, right? And I think Kentucky's in that same sense too, geographically. Georgia's a huge rivalry, Florida, right? Like, there's all those games that, depending on which part, maybe which age of our fan base you talk to, you're going to get a different answer.
Do you favor the 6-3 model?
I don't have any feelings on it. I don't get to decide anyway, so we'll line up whoever they put on the schedule and get ready to play.
Coach, you talked earlier about Hendon and what he's done with NIL, with his book and everything. Kind of more of your thoughts on that, and do you think that's kind of been a thing that's led other guys to maybe explore opportunities to give back as well through NIL?
Man, it's a natural part of NIL. Our players have always done a lot of things in the community, and that's a part of why we hired a 3-person player development team to help these guys grow personally and professionally outside of the game, give them opportunities to go spend time and interact with our community. And for Hendon, who's got a deep faith and understands the road that he's traveled, having an opportunity to pay it back to the youth in Knoxville and across this area is vitally important to him, and I think that's a great example of an opportunity through NIL that makes a lot of sense.
Do you think there needs to be more regulations on NIL, and do you see it possibly being a negative impact on the sport moving forward?
I think we want to educate and empower student athletes, right, and help them grow personally and professionally during their 4 years. I think NIL does that. Does everybody want fair and equitable, legislation? I think, yeah, in college sports, we want that. For a long time, the path was concrete and it didn't move, right? And I'm talking for generations. And there's a lot of movement right now, but I think it's extremely valuable and it's a great opportunity for us to embrace it. Now, how do we navigate the space the best that we can? I think everybody wants that.
Is the existence of NIL good for Tennessee football?
Yeah, absolutely. Are you kidding me? Like, the Power T is one of the strongest brands and logos in all of college sports. And it's that because of the passion and pageantry and the fan base, right? All things that I thought from the outside looking in, but man, have a greater, deeper appreciation for now that I've been here for 18 months. And the city of Knoxville, the state, Vol Nation across the country, absolutely it's a positive for Tennessee athletics.
Have you read Hendon's book?
I haven't read it all the way to front to cover. I've made it 3/4 of the way before my son grabbed it out of my hands.
Did he have any review, your son, on Hendon's book? Did he like it?
My son?
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Anything else? One last one. Football.